Ready to roll?
All right, lesson number 2, dust protection and working in occupied labs. I'm going to kind of tie the two together. So the first thing we're going to talk about is, which we do, is when we go into an individual lab, a one-room renovation. We're going in quickly. We got to run some new, maybe some new data cables. The electrician's coming in. So when you walk into anybody's lab, the biggest thing that everyone has to understand is you're not allowed to touch any of the countertops because you don't know what's on that countertop. It could be something that was an infectious disease. You think getting COVID's bad. There's stuff that they have over there that's nastier than that. So you don't touch anything without a pair of gloves on, and you shouldn't have, to touch anything. You're going to take a fine piece of poly, something lightweight, and use that to cover up any of the carrels that are there, the benches, making sure that you don't knock anything over, obviously. If you have to slide anything in a little bit, you can, but you really shouldn't touch anything that's on any of the benches. You cover it with plastic, because when you immediately remove any of the ceiling tiles, there's dust that's going to come out. And you don't know what else is going to come out of the top of these ceiling tiles. We've had bricks come down. People leave beer cans, all sorts of assorted stuff you'll find above the ceiling tiles. And that could fall down onto the table, which could contaminate somebody's experiment, which has been going on for months or years or whatever. And we could find ourselves in a very precarious situation there. So that's like the smallest job that we normally do. Under that dust protection, normally, if you're just removing some ceiling tiles, you're not going to have a negative air machine. You're not going to set up a walk-off mat. You're going in for one day. You're going to pop a couple of ceiling tiles with the electrician. He's going to pull in his wires. The ceiling tiles go back in place, and the poly gets wrapped up carefully. You're mopping the floor on your way out. Maybe you have to blow some dust off of any of the counters that are there before you mop. You're mopping the situation in the room, and then out you go. So that's the smallest version of any of our jobs. The next step would be if we were going in and we're going to redo 3 or 4 rooms in a suite, say, or even 2 rooms where you're actually going to be taking down walls, doing a more extensive, pulling out cabinets, changing things out. In that case, you want to be able to, when you go in, you're going to put a walk-off mat, which it's a different size, 3x3 usually, 2x3, and it has 28 layers of stickum. It attaches to the floor. It picks up 90% of the dust as you walk out of the room, so that alleviates it from going down the hallways, which is a major concern of tracking it out with you. That's usually just on the inside of the doorway. Sometimes it has to be on the outside, depends on the situation. Once again, you're not going to, so there you're going to set up a negative air machine. We have photos of a negative air machine on the other side, which everybody here knows what a negative air machine is, I believe. And there's 2 different situations. Sometimes there's an opening window and you're allowed to vent it out the window. You stick a hose on it and it vents out, which is the best case scenario. In the worst case scenario, the machine itself filters the air in, and it goes through a series of fiber filters, and then it goes through a cardboard filter, which is the, what's it called?
HEPA.
HEPA filter, thank you very much. I drew a blank. And then it discharges. So it collects 99% of the dust on the way through. So you're going to set up a negative air machine. You're going to set up tracking pads. Guys are going to go in. When they do demo, they're going to put everything in a container. That container then needs to be covered while you're transporting it down through the hallway, say at Yale, going out to a dumpster site, or if they're live loading it, so that you're not spilling anything out in the hallways. So that process goes on. They're demoing. We get through. Malik, if you have to go, it's okay.
Okay.
We get through the
One more way.
through demo, and then you're in the build-out phase. Once again, every night, the area needs to be swept. The hallways need to be mopped, swept and mopped to contain any dust so that it doesn't, I gotta breathe.
Yeah, I'm with you.
So that it doesn't get tracked down the hallway and into other hallways, because it will travel. Sheetrock dust travels like crazy. It sticks to everybody's feet, to your clothes, etc. So knock your clothes off before you leave. Wipe your feet on that dust mat on the way out the door. Make sure everybody else does the same thing. And that will help contain most of the dust within the space. That's a multi-room. There's a couple different types of ways that if there is an existing door that you can leave into the hallway, that's the best case scenario. You leave the one existing. Interior doors you're going to take out. Worst case, if you have to take that door out for some reason and you have a zip wall, which it makes this mechanical door that you can put on, plastic going across the opening. You can zip up, it rolls up during the daytime, and used to be tabs that would hold it up during the day, and then you could lower it down as you bring material in and out. It's kind of a pain because of the zippers to be going in and out very often. So removing material. The other way that we do is you could put plastic across with a slit down the middle, and then you drop a flap, which you tape across, and that flap moves in and out. It maintains most of the dust within the space. So that would be what you would use on, say, a mid-sized project. When you get into a large project, say you're going to do a total wing renovation like we just got through doing in Lauder Hall, luckily we were able to build temporary walls, and we did a sheetrock structure wall on either end of the renovation. We put in temporary doors. We knocked down doors and frames. We were able to put locks on them, which you always want to keep your construction site locked up so no one goes in and gets access to it. So you call in Yale, at Yale's facilities, they put in temporary construction cores. So we were able to do that. That's another version of dust control, would be the hard sheetrocked walls, which we went through constructing them at the last teaching that we had presented by Steve and Rob. So that's an alternative also. The third, or another alternative, would be the Stark wall system, right? That I'm not very familiar with because I haven't used them yet. So I'm going to turn it over to Caesar, and I don't know how many of us have used the Stark wall. They did it in Bridgeport.
Called me
And here in New Haven.
And over in New Haven.
Right over here, Crown Street, yeah.
Right. So I haven't used it. I'm not really familiar with it, how it goes together. Once again, we're going to step in. We probably now can just step in and turn on the video or the films and bring it up on the screen so we can see exactly what it looks like. And Caesar can talk about how it goes together and how it functions. You know, for those, this is the negative air machine that we're using. We're actually using this right now over at the Gold Building, 154. It's a typical negative air machine. Shows the side controls, which shows the vacuum, the flow, airflow. When you turn it on, it's high or low pressure. The right-hand photo shows the discharge area where the hose would go, or the air comes out of. Where the grate is open, that's where the air flows into the machine. The next photo will show changing the air filters, how to change it. You open up the grid. There's a couple of different filters there. There's a primary filter, which is the HEPA filter, then there is a metal screened fiber filter, which goes next, and then there's disposable little 1/4-inch filters that just go in front. Usually you put 2 or 3 of those, and during the day you can peel one off. The first one catches all the dust, you peel it off, throw it away. The next one will work for the next few hours, you know, or depending on how dusty the situation is. But keeping those clean is very important because that's helps the airflow going through the machine, which helps gather the dust, and it also just, you know, collects it so that you can get rid of it.
So I have a question about this. Should I wait till the end? Or? So, Rob, you're familiar with
Yes.
these in our setting at 500 Sargent, where we had asbestos and, you know, PCB, hazardous materials. Can this be used as a, like, is that what it's sucking up as well? Can it be used as well for not only dust but hazardous conditions?
Depends on the micron size of what you're trying to remove from the air.
Right.
So it won't work on gas or vapor or anything like that, but particulate.
Yeah, any small particulates, if they're scraping stuff and it's getting airborne and it's dropping, it'll help suck it through. Depends on the weight of it and everything else, whether it stays
But
airborne.
if there's hazards, asbestos or whatever, it's not used to collect that.
Okay.
It's just to make the air safe for working.
It wouldn't work against
Yeah.
COVID, for instance.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So would you locate this strategically, like where the dust is most, or it doesn't matter?
It doesn't matter. I mean, you know, it's going to suck it and it's going to migrate to it. And depending on how strong the air system is. Oh, also, which I missed on the original, if you're in a room and there's return air vents, prior to starting any construction, we put a filter fabric paper over those return air vents. I should have added that early on, totally spaced, which we have over at the Gold Building. Anywhere that the return air is, you want to put it there, so that keeps anything from getting into the central filter system of the building, or, you know, the project site, wherever you are. So that's the first thing you should do. And that's that part. Secondly, would be having these negative air machines, which picks up any dust that's adjacent to it or in that room area.
All right.
That's it. That's what I got to say.
On to
Also,
Stark
would you-
Wall.
Would you use
Okay.
this?
Sorry.
Sorry,
One more
my
question.
Would you use this along with open windows, or do we always need to close the windows when we're using it?
Well, if you open the window, you negate a lot of the flow. I mean, it's sucking in, but, you know, if you have an open window, you take the hose out of the window, you kind of, normally you contain it down to just the hose size. You want to create a vacuum in the room to suck it out.
Makes sense.
Otherwise, you're blowing things in and it's never really getting filtered properly through the machine.
Makes
So.
sense.
All right, so the Stark Wall, originally designed, I think, for healthcare environments, but recently adopted by the construction industry. It's kind of like the Cadillac of containment systems. It's my experience. We've used this product, the Real Wall. They make a separate product, which is a lighter duty. It's called the Light Wall, as you would expect. But this is the one that not only, you know, keeps your dust in, but also does sound attenuation. So if you have a sound sensitive environment, you got people who, you know, might complain that if they hear loud noises. This dampens that to an extent. It's not total. So it's a really nice system. It's modular. Every single one of those panels can be reconfigured in multiple ways. They make door panels, as you can see, and special panels that contain openings for negative air machine to dump out of. Yeah, so can you just go to the next slide? So yeah, these are just pictures of how they're you know, constructed front to back. You know, this is just a standard wall panel. They come in varying widths depending on Yep, they also go up and
They
down.
slide for the height adjustments?
Yep.
I've never seen one, so
Yep.
Yeah,
It's a,
Pretty cool.
it's an Allen wrench. You just loosen up a couple screws, take the tension off, and it's actually 2 panels that slide on the track. You take the smaller one, it's already lifted off the ground, you get it up to where you gotta go, tighten up your Allens, and it's basically just held there by the you know,
is it pressure, is
Tension.
it hold by the pressure between the floor and the ceiling?
just clips.
yeah, yes and no. Yeah, if you have a ceiling grid, you clip onto the grid. That's probably the best way to secure it.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how well
If
it
you-
would hold up on
But if you had a sheetrock ceiling, you could go
Right.
up to a sheetrock ceiling.
You'd have to press, you know, if you wanted to have some security that it would be stable.
Yeah.
And keep in mind, it's gonna be, you're gonna have a box too, so like,
Yeah.
it's gonna support itself by the structure of it being a box type shape. But, yeah, you'd wanna press it up into the finished wall pretty,
And does it have, do you just
Strongly.
hit a screw every so often or something? And
that, I'm not sure if there's a, no, I think it's really just held in place by the tension that you
Okay.
create, between the floor and the ceiling.
Gotcha.
So, but in my experience, I used it with grid, ceiling grid clips, which help. But they kind of stand on their own anyways. They're pretty heavy and they have like a nice, like probably like 4-inch base of support at the bottom. So it's not just like just the wall straight down to the ground. Next slide.
There's some videos.
Oh yeah, so we don't have it here. These videos will basically show you how to set up the different components. It's super easy, but they're a little heavy, so you gotta either be strong or use 2 guys.
So the panels that we have that are available, do we have a door panel?
Yep.
So we have one door. Is it a door you can see through or
No,
is it
it's
solid?
just like the one in that picture that,
Okay, just a solid door.
Yeah.
That's what I didn't know.
They do make ones that have glass
A little
inserts.
window or something?
Yeah, little lights.
Okay.
they come with their own cart,
You can swing.
you know, you frame rolling cart,
Uh-huh.
they all come
They
with
stack
that.
on it
They stack on it, and then you use ratchet straps that holds everything onto the cart.
for
Nice.
transporting it.
Yep,
How heavy are they?
very.
Yeah, probably about like 60 pounds each, 70
Yeah, each
pounds.
panel.
Okay.
I mean, well, they have different size panels. The ones that are like 12 inches wide, obviously, are pretty manageable.
Right.
There's the door.
We might not get any speaker. but-
That's okay.
Yeah, it's just a little bit. So as you can see, they basically take each panel that's going to add on to it, they pick it up and it. Oh, you do have sound. All right,
It's
I'm
not
not.
the front of the panel. It's always the white painted side. The rear is the galvanized steel
That's the
side.
ugly side.
Left and right are always referenced while facing the front or white side of the panel.
It's like a good neighbor.
For basic panel assembly, position the first panel in a location that will allow a ceiling grid connection if possible. Loosen the 2 lock screws hidden in the back of the upper panel with the supplied 5/32 Allen wrench. Raise the upper panel to contact the ceiling, compressing the upper foam gasket slightly to make a seal against the acoustic tile and grid. Then lightly tighten the lock screws on both sides of the panel with the supplied Allen wrench. Don't over tighten. The screws only need a quarter turn to secure the upper panel in position. Secure the panel to the ceiling grid with the standard ceiling grid clip. Other ceiling, floor, and lateral anchoring options are available if needed. Next, install the second panel adjacent to the first. Position the new panel by aligning the front lower faces, bringing the panels as close together as possible. You might find it helpful to use your foot to align the bases. Keeping the front faces aligned, lift the new panel by about 1.5 inches. Then push it into the
Drops
fixed
in, and then
panel
you
so the
repeat the
splines
same
drop
steps
into
from the
grooves.
beginning. That's it. That's all.
That's
it
it.
is.
Bolts
And
drop in.
that drops right in?
Yeah.
Raise the
That's the
up-
basic principle. I don't know what else
Cool.
you're gonna show. It's probably a waste of
So,
time.
so it's just like a slot, a slip slot bolt
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
drops down onto.
Yeah.
And there's corners,
Yeah.
attach a corner, and I'll let you go 90 degrees.
So-
It's a separate corner,
Yes.
that's a separate corner piece that locks in and
Yep.
it's the same locking device.
Yep.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
There's a adjustable, so you
To
can
create a
actually.
return, if you had to create a return. You got inside, outside corners?
Did you wanna watch this one
Flexible
next?
corner.
Yeah. So this is a video that, what is this? That's the basic. So no, that we're done with that one.
Don't talk to the police.
Flexible corner.
So flexible corner, so you can go anywhere from 90 degrees, a 90-degree corner to 100 180, it flexes, it goes,
Oh.
Dark systems,
you can create any
flexible
kind of
corner,
angle you need with that
has a
thing.
telescoping inside or outside corner.
And the,
Relative to
and
front side
the
of the
angle
panel, the outside
telescopes
corner bends way
along
forward,
with
while
the
inside corner
panel,
bends
so
forward.
you have a continuous
Please
seal
note the
at the
front of the
joint.
panel is always the white-plated side. The rear is the galvanized steel side. Left and right are always referenced while facing the front or white side of the panel. Begin by orienting the bend of the corners desired by flipping it end for end if needed. The module is fully symmetric and will provide a flexible wall connection that can swing from 15 to 90 degrees and will slide up and down with the panel once connected. Note the labeling to help you identify the desired orientation inside versus outside corner. You'll notice that the flexible corner is equipped with T-nuts that align with the slots on the left side of
Same,
the
same
aligning
installation process, pick it up, drop it in.
panel. With the standard Allen wrench, secure the T-nuts of the corner module to the left side of the
And then
adjacent panel
basically,
first.
you take your other wall panel, you put it on that side of it, same thing, pick it up, drop it in, and then you can swing it as you need it.
The bottom
I
nut of the
don't think
inside
we're gonna watch
corners
the
are
rest
not
of it,
engaged.
but just to kind of see what the thing looks like.
While restraining the corner,
Yeah,
the
it's
neck
cool.
and neck
It's pretty simple though.
Oh, it's super simple. It's just, it's a lot of brute work because they're just heavy panels. But the finished product is nice. I can tell you that, you know, it's got a really refined look. It's a nice system. We don't have one.
The
We
swing door
borrowed
installs
one,
just
but
as any other panel with a standard lift and
we
drop
got some
mechanism.
compliments on it.
Please note the front of the panel is
Well, where
always
did
the
the
white
system,
painted
where did
side.
ours come from?
The
We don't
rear
know?
is the galvanized steel side.
Treff's
Left and right are
Properties,
always referenced while
Park
using
City.
the
I
front
missed your
or
quote,
right
yeah,
side.
that was,
When
EMA's
installing
was
the door,
down there,
pressure
right on
is
for
I don't know how many linear feet you have, but it's a lot.
Yeah, you want your general,
Trez has it.
They own it, yeah.
you want your general trades to install this stuff.
It was like 30 grand,
One on
too.
each side.
Yeah, it's pretty involved.
The weight and movement of the
you
door
know,
when either closed or open.
Probably takes like
Yeah,
good like
I-
3-4
Once squared
hours
is secure,
just in the
the
small area that
crossrail
we
would
were
definitely be
working.
renting
Get it
that
set up
rate.
properly.
above the
We
door
had
at the
to
header
involve
location.
renting.
So the corner gusts
Right,
clear the
for the
swing of the door.
Yeah.
Huge
What do you
cost.
do with it when
The
you
cross
run?
rail
We've
is
already
secured
borrowed
with
it
cast
once,
angle
so-
brackets into the upper post. Use a 1/8 inch Allen wrench to loosen the set screws
Oh, I
and
didn't know you
adjust as
guys went
required.
down there and borrowed.
Yeah, so me and
Aligning the
Steve
rail
Oh,
to the
nice.
door
put it
height.
up.
Yeah,
Beat the cut and tape a piece of 5/8 inch
Was
drywall.
it just still
or
in that
similar
room on the
material to
cards?
Fit in the space above the door.
So it's gotta be stabilized to the,
Secure with a 5/8 inch
some,
offset
to something
bracket.
above it.
Drilling
They
9
say
specific
preferably
holes
to a grid
treated
clip,
for
but you
screws.
could do it to a finished wall too. You just
No, I know that, but I'm just saying it has to be stabilized.
Should be
It's-
installed
yeah.
following the manufacturer's
I'm just
recommendations.
Thinking of
The door is
application.
pre-configured with all required hardware.
Because if it's not a box, it's just,
To reverse the door from an
Gotcha.
outswing to an in-swing door, remove the closer if already installed. With the door open.
yeah. So it's basically just the door. I mean, there's the only thing worth noting about the door
Be aware of the
is
spaces
you can
behind
change the
plate.
swing of the door. There's
Lift
just
the
2
strike
pins at the bottom and top of the doors that the door swings on. Those press. They're on a spring, so you can press them in, and then it releases from the little retaining holes at the top and the bottom. You pull the door off, swing it, and you just pop them into the holes on the other side. So you can change the swing of this door very easily. It doesn't require a drill. You don't really need any tools. You just need your strength. So yeah, I think that's good for that video. I think that was all I had really. I mean, it's a nice system. The key takeaways are it's refined and it does sound attenuation. It's dampened sound. And it's all set up with, you don't need any other tool besides the Allen wrench that it comes with and your arms. That's all you need to set it up. So,
And the ceiling clips, they have a little Allen screw on them also, that same
wing
Allen
nut,
wrench?
wing nut.
A wing nut?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
So, yeah,
Yeah, it's a pretty, I thought we owned some, but I guess that I was misinformed. Not that it matters, I mean, they are very expensive. And it depends on your application, how many feet of wall that you need. I mean, it gets really expensive, I'm
right,
sure.
Yeah,
right.
it's neat too. I remember seeing it up there in Bridgeport. It looked like a whole different room, literally like
Yeah.
a little building.
biggest problem was it was they're long, so you can't go in an elevator. And they're all on a cart already.
Oh,
So you have to go to the elevator, take each panel off.
oh.
I mean, no way to get around.
get it up or down.
Yeah,
The
Yeah.
cart's as big as this table, right?
Yep.
The cart's-
well, with everything on it.
Yeah, right.
Almost as big.
Gotcha. So it won't fit anywhere unless you had a giant freight elevator
Right.
like we did over
Techno.
at Technolutions. We had a big one that would take,
Well, that's right.
that was 13 feet high and 9 feet deep.
That was a big, that was.
Yeah, that was a real big
I
elevator.
mean, who knows when we're gonna see one of these again, but it's just good to know that it exists, you know, as an option.
Petra uses it a lot too, I noticed.
Yeah, well, they do a lot of hospital rooms. This becomes a whole, that's a whole different, when you go to do a in the hospital renovation, it's a whole different level of clean room. It has to be a clean room, so they have to meet a whole bunch of different criteria than we do at med school. You know, our line of cleanliness and theirs is totally different, based on the hospital regulations. So, but that's it as far as, you know, the biggest thing is, you know, the dust control, and obviously is the cleanup afterwards, the daily sweepings, moppings, no matter what site you're on. You know, not to blow our horn, but when we did Technolutions, I mean, people came in over there and they were like, they would look around and they go, people are working? I mean, you know, but because we had that new freshly poured floor, when you got done sweeping it, it looked like it just mopped the whole thing. I mean, that, we don't always get that. We get very rough floors most of the time, but that also, that roughness holds a lot of that dust unless you sweep it aggressively, and that ends up tracking. So just daily cleanups are important, as we know, and Yale being one of our primary contracts, I keep going back to that because I spent so many years over there. And, you know, footprints, you can see them all the way down the hallway, around into an elevator, you know, and if you don't mop it all at the end of the day, you know, our phone rings the next morning. So, so that's, you know, that's it. In the overall perspective of things, is just make sure that at the end of the day it's 100% clean the way you came in, and leave it the same way. Lastly, we're going to talk about what we should have been first, is smoke detectors and the protection of those smoke detectors. On small jobs, we normally take them out of service daily. Once again, if it's something at Yale, you have to put a request in ahead of time. They will take it out during the day, put it back in. Most of our jobs, which are a little larger, we will, at the beginning of the job, change out all the smoke detectors to heat detectors, which eliminates the fact that they can trigger from any dust being stirred up. And they stay in until the end of the job, and it's pretty much the last thing that we do. At the end of the job, we go back through after we're cleaned, you know, 100% construction clean. They'll change out the smokes, the heats back to smokes, and then the fire marshal comes through and will do an inspection. They'll trigger each one of them, make sure that they're functioning properly in order to get your final certificate of occupancy for the area in which you're renovating. And anybody have anything else that want to add about smoke detectors that I may have missed? That's it. We don't cover them temporarily. It's against the law. No tape on them, and just got to, as a project super, or you just have to pay attention to where they are, because sometimes they're hidden. They may be in one of the other rooms around the corner, and you don't know it's there, and you start making some dust, and next thing you know, it migrates into that room, and it trips it. And buildings have been emptied at Yale. More than the number of times I've emptied buildings over there, you know, and you don't want to answer for it. They're not happy when, especially in the winter time. And the perfect example, I did Picard Chilton's, which is a private company here on Chapel Street, and I had a guy in the first floor, temporary laborer, vacuuming up and cleaning up a lot of sawdust where we had a workshop set up. And I left the site for 10 minutes, and while I was gone, the filter blew off the vacuum bag and filled the whole room with dust, triggered all the alarms. When I came back around the corner, the owner and his people that were here from Calgary were standing all outside on Chapel Street on the green, and it was winter time. and they weren't very happy. So, but stuff happens, you know, that wasn't the man's fault, the bag just blew off. But if they were not changed back to smokes, if there were still heat detectors in that area, that wouldn't have happened. So just got to really be prepared for anything, because it can happen in this business. That shit happens, as they say.
And duck smokes.
And duck smokes. Oh yeah, thank you, Mike. Duck smokes. There's smokes detectors that are in return air ducts that you may not know are there. You know, some buildings have them, some buildings don't. So you got to be aware of that, and hopefully, you know, you can isolate those. Once again, they can be taken out of service on a daily basis or changed out at the beginning of the project. So they're the hidden ones that you don't know about, and they can come and bite you in the butt. So.
But if we're sealing off all the return goods before starting, then that shouldn't happen, right?
Well, you can get something through. Even though you seal it off, it can still get back up in there. And, you know, it doesn't take much dust to set some of these off. They're very, very sensitive. So you want to make sure that you identify all the locations where they are right at the beginning of the project, and address each one of them as the situation comes about. Good.